All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of My Talking Head, starring My Talking Head, of course. My name is Chris from HHNlegacy.com, and happy Thanksgiving! Now, it's been quite some time since I've done my last video talking about Halloween Horror Nights, so I finally have some time to do it. My final Halloween Horror Nights thoughts for this year. I've had some people ask me, when is your video gonna be up? I've been very busy the past couple days, and throughout the course of the event I've been really busy too because of this Horror on Earth game, which I will actually do a separate video talking about the Horror on Earth experience. So we won't necessarily talk about that today. So we're going to go ahead and just get started. Some house cleaning issues before we start. Of course, yesterday Universal Orlando announced that Transformers the Ride 3D is coming to Universal Studios Florida. Of course, the speculation and rumors and all that stuff were true. Soundstage 44, which, of course, most Horror Nights fans know by now. There was a house being constructed in there, and then they were hastily told to get out because the building was being demolished, and it was a structure going up, which they worked tirelessly around the clock, even during throughout the Halloween Horror Nights event at night. There's apparently trying to set some kind of a land speed record to get that building up because Transformers the Ride 3D is slated to open in the summer of 2013. Rumors and speculation seem to pinpoint July as the opening target month for it, but that's yet to be seen, of course. They haven't announced an official date, just summer 2013. And mind you, this is a ride that in Hollywood and Singapore really it took about 3 years from concept to completion to build the ride. So they're trying to do that here within a year. So that's really interesting and cool. So Transformers the Ride 3D coming in July of 2013 or summer of 2013. So anyway, getting into my thoughts on this year's Halloween Horror Nights. First, let's talk about what I got from the event. Now, I stopped buying the shirts a long time ago because my weight fluctuates so much that either the shirts are too big or too small, they shrink in the wash, and all that stuff. So I stopped buying the shirts. The last shirt I bought was in 2008, I believe. So I don't buy the shirts anymore. But one thing I do buy every year is I buy my little shooter glass, my little Horror Nights shooter glass there. I buy this every year. Got a huge collection of these. We got the map, of course. This is one of the maps. This is the Silent Hill version. Woo, Silent Hill. This year I actually bought a lanyard. I don't usually buy the lanyards, but I did buy a lanyard this year, the new Halloween Horror Nights lanyard. And mostly I bought it for the stupid Horror on Earth card because I got tired of taking it out of my wallet the entire time. Of course, I got my frequent fear pass in there. Yes. And also we have about 8 of these. This one actually does not work. The blinkies stopped, but we have 8 of these sitting around the house. So that's what I got this year. So moving on, Halloween Horror Nights 22, HHN 22. What did I think of it? It was a good year. It was a solid year. It wasn't the end all be all of years. Wasn't the best year. Wasn't the greatest year. But it was good. It had a lot of really cool elements. There was a lot of experimenting going on, especially when it came to the streets. Of course, the whole street experience was one giant experiment. They were kind of forced to do the street experience, because of things around the park, construction, parade, all that stuff. But it was a good year. It was a solid year. It had its ups and downs. There was a couple houses that I think were just not very good, and then the streets I thought were good. I'll get to that in a little bit. But let's start with the houses. I'm gonna go through the bottom of the list to the top of the list. So what is at the bottom of the list? Coming in at number 7, The Walking Dead: Dead Inside. This one gets a final rating of a 3. The last video that I had, I gave it a 2.5. I was I was starting to get frustrated with this house a lot, and the last week of the event they kind of stepped it up a little bit, but still, very disappointing house. Didn't like the sets in the house. There was no energy in this house whatsoever. Didn't like the walkers. There was just nothing. Things just didn't gel in this house. I was really expecting something more from The Walking Dead, but it just never totally pulled it off. I think if you're a fan of the show, you know, you might have liked the house a little bit more, just because it did kind of transport you into that world. But I really was not a huge fan. It never really worked for me. So final rating on Walking Dead, Dead Inside is a 3. Personal scares, one of the best scares that I had in this house was in the first room. The first time I walked through the house, I didn't even know this guy was there. You know, but it was in the hospital room. It was the broken elevator. As I was looking at the other walker that was on the other side, I had no idea he was there, and he came running out with the noise and the you know, the electrical wires going off and all other crazy nonsense. And that definitely got me good. That was probably the best scare I had in that house throughout the entire run. But for me, Walking Dead, not very good, not great, just kind of whatever. So it's gonna, the 3 is the final rating for me on that. So next up, number 6, Alice Cooper's Welcome to My Nightmare. Now, the first weekend I went through this house, I was actually impressed with it. It seemed to work. You know, it was crazy and weird and all that stuff, which I didn't really, you know, I'm not an Alice Cooper fan, so I didn't really get the music stuff or whatever. And again, if you're a fan, you might like the house even more because you'll get all the references and stuff like that. I really didn't get the references or anything, and I didn't really go into the house with people who are Alice Cooper fans, so even they didn't know. But the first weekend I thought it was good. I thought there was a lot of energy going on. The sets were whatever, but what pulled the house a little bit away from, you know, if we're going back to The Walking Dead, because I didn't like the sets in The Walking Dead that much either, but the actors in The Walking Dead really didn't bring anything out of the house. In Alice Cooper, the actors sort of made the house for me the first weekend. And after a while, things started to die down a little bit, and there was no energy in the house. Now, there was an incident, if I'm not mistaken, in Alice Cooper, about halfway through the event, where one of the actors was purposely injured by a guest. I think it was, they were maced or something like that with a pepper spray or something. And then right after that is kind of when things started to fall a bit. I think they might have been a little afraid, which is understandable, totally understandable. But you know, it is what it is. So Alice Cooper also going to stand at a 3. A little bit of an edge for me over The Walking Dead, but overall I'm going to give it a 3. You know, it is what it is. I really, I'm not a fan of Alice Cooper being there. You know, I'm not adverse to it being there. You know, it'd actually be interesting, I think, to bring Alice Cooper back. Maybe getting, you know, the house that they had this year in Hollywood. I think that'd be pretty interesting. But it was okay. It was meh. It was kind of whatever. So Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare, gets a 3. Next up is Gothic. Now Gothic never, that's 5. Gothic sits at a 5 right now, the 5th position, I guess. So Gothic, again, I was most looking forward to this house. I think I might have hyped myself up a little bit too much for it. But the first weekend I went in, it was a little bit disappointing. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of scares in there, wasn't a whole lot of actors, and I chopped it up to, you know, being in there at the end of the night. But I had to go into all these houses multiple times because of Horror Unearthed. And so I got to experience them at different times of the day, at different times of the night, all sort of stuff. And Gothic just never really took off for me. It never really went over and beyond what I thought it was going to do. The sets were amazing and the costumes were good, but the scares and stuff were a little bit too few and far between. You know, it is what it is. A little bit disappointed in Gothic. I love the sets though. The sets were great. The facade was awesome. I love the costumes. I love the flying gargoyles. Like all that stuff was really cool. But as far as like scare factor and stuff like that, I just really didn't feel the house. I mean, it was a good house, not a great house, but never really reached that plateau for me. Oh, let's go back to Alice Cooper for a minute. Best personal scare in Alice Cooper for me, or the one I remember the most, Halloween night. I went in, and the straitjacket guy. I don't know if he might have recognized me because I had gone through the house multiple times, but he scared me. And then proceeded to follow me into the next room. And then into the next, like it was weird, like he followed me in like 2 different rooms. So it was weird, but that was probably the highlight of the house for me over the course of the event. For Gothic, um, there was a couple of good scares in here, but I think the one that stands out the most was the gargoyle head thing and the head boo hole. I can't remember which part of the house it was, but I think it was towards the middle when you were walking down the corridor and there was you walk straight and then there's a right and there was a little, it was supposed to be like a little shelf for a gargoyle statue and there was a head. That guy got me good. So that was probably the one that I remember the most from Gothic and the one that stood out for me. So Gothic's final rating gets a 3.5. I thought the sets were really cool, and I think that kind of elevates it a little bit over the other houses for me anyway. Scares were okay, but never truly the house that I thought it would be. But so moving on, number 4, Penn and Teller nuked Las Vegas. Now I did not see Penn and Teller. They were there. I don't know if they were there just one time or 2 times, but they were in the house at a certain point. But I did not get to see them, so it is what it is. But I really, really, really like this fun. Like it's probably my favorite funhouse that Horror Nights has done so far. I thought the 3D worked really well. It wasn't the end all be all of scares. Did have some really cool scares in there, but it was a really fun house. Like I love the interactivity in the house. I love the design of the house. The 3D worked really well. The Christmas room the Christmas light room or whatever was really disorienting, even more so than the huge disorienting 3D room or whatever in the in-between. I really think that the 3D effect in Penn and Teller worked better than it did in the in-between, and the in-between has a really good effect, a good 3D, good use of the 3D. But I love Penn and Teller's 3D better. I thought it worked better for the whole funhouse atmosphere, and it just worked better in Penn and Teller. Very funny house. I love the interactivity, the buttons, the rope, the slot machine. All that stuff was really cool. Like I really enjoyed, and then telling people in the line, because like I said in one of my other videos, this is one of the first times I'd gone to Horror Nights by myself. So one of the nights I was there alone, I was in line and it was a really long wait. Where I just struck up a conversation with people online who had not been in the house. So I was telling them, as we were going through, I'm like, hit that button, pull the rope, do this, that. They got a kick out of it. It was very fun. It was a very fun house. I love the video, the Q video. I thought was hilarious. But yeah, very fun house. So Penn and Teller nuked Las Vegas is going to get a 4. So it did kind of. The first weekend, it was my favorite house that I did on the opening night, and then it kind of went, and then they stepped it up again towards the end in terms of the actors and stuff. So Penn and Teller gets a 4. Best personal scare in this house came on opening night. One word, clown. That's all I'm going to say. The clown was what scared me. The scare that I remember the most from Penn and Teller. So coming in at number 3. On my list is Silent Hill. Welcome to Silent Hill. This is very surprising because like I said, I don't know that much about Silent Hill. I wasn't really looking forward to the house. It was kind of like in the middle for me. But I kept finding myself going back into it. I made it a point when I was there to do Silent Hill. It was, it became this thing that I, really, really enjoyed. It was a really good house. The facade, if you want to call it the facade, I thought was really cool. I love, how it's not, in terms of Horror Nights facades, it's not this grand, epic, Gothic-like facade, but it set the tone for the house perfectly. The road with the ash and the sign and the siren as you go into the actual house, and the thing off to the side and the gun and all. I mean, it set up the house perfectly. I really love the tone in here. I love the vibe. Very weird and twisted, but I think the weird and twisted element kind of worked a little bit better in Silent Hill than it did for, say, Alice Cooper. Billing it as from the demented mind of Alice Cooper. And Alice Cooper did have that feel, the whole twisted, demented thing. But I thought it worked better for Silent Hill. you know, I don't know too much about Silent Hill and I don't know too much about Alice Cooper, but I think that Silent Hill, the weirdness of it or whatever, just kind of fits better, even if you don't know too much about it, than say Alice Cooper. You know, it just overall worked better in this house for me. I love the sets. My one complaint about Silent Hill would be Pyramid Head. I love it. I mean, I thought it was cool with the stilts, but I thought he was a little too scrawny to be Pyramid Head. I envisioned him something a little bit different, uh, uh, but it was still cool. I really dug this house. Lots of good scares in here as well. Two scares that got me the most were those stupid air lockers. The first time I went in, I wasn't expecting that at all. I mean, I heard the air cannons, but I didn't know that they were in that hallway. Got me good. And then right as you turn the corner in the lockers, where you get to the bathroom, there's one of those false drop-down walls. That shit, I nearly pissed my pants. The first time I walked around that corner. It was really, that got me. That really did get me. But oh, I really enjoyed this house. I thought it was really cool. They pulled it off nicely, I thought. But so Silent Hill gonna get a 4. Silent Hill gets a 4. A little slight edge over Penn and Teller for me though, but overall it's gonna get a 4. So sits in the 3rd place position. Number 2, Universal's House of Horrors. Now, if you saw the first video I talked about this house, I ripped this house a new one. I did it on opening night. Terrible, absolutely. Or I'm sorry, I think it was a Saturday. Terrible, absolutely terrible. And then, you know, I come to find out that the house actually was not done. There was stuff not finished on opening weekend. The house was not complete on opening weekend. Paint on the masks weren't completed. Props weren't added. The lightning effect wasn't done yet. There were so many things that were not completed in the house. So the next time I went through, it was a huge change. It really changed. Things changed. Really scary. Lots of energy by the actors. The lighting effect worked really well. Classic monsters, of course. And then by the end of the event, I really loved this house. It all came together. I don't know how they made it come together, but it all really did. It was minimal. I thought the lighting effect and the painting and the makeup and all that stuff, when everything was working properly, it transported you into that black and white era of old school horror. I mean, it was really done well. Of course, they added later on, as opposed to the opening weekend stuff, they added stuff and all that other stuff, all that other nonsense, stuff that was not there the first time I went through. They just really pulled this house together. Lots of really good scares in here. Really one of my favorite houses, and I think I would like to see a version of this house return in the future, but with bigger, you know, sequelize it, make it bigger and better, you know. Even if it sucks, just make it bigger and better, you know. But it really worked for me. I love House of Horrors. I love Universal's House of Horrors. Very surprised with that house. Kudos to the actors in this house too. You all did a fantastic job. You all pulled it together. It was good stuff. So House of Horrors gets a 4.5. 4.5. So all the way up from a 2.5 from the first time I went in the house. So number 1, of course, the only house left, Dead End. My favorite house this year. Probably one of my favorite houses that Horror Nights has done in a really long time. I love the just the simple concept of a haunted house. That's all it was. It was just a haunted house. Of course, the haunted house just happens to be located in the creepy town of Cary, Ohio. But, you know, just a simple haunted house. Now, inside it wasn't as simple with all the effects and stuff like that they were doing. I think I mentioned in another video that I'm not really a fan of the effects gimmicky houses, but this one worked for me. This one, the effects just, you know, no matter where you are, you're looking at something. There's something going on, whether it's the Pepper's Ghost effect or floating books or the tunnel. Everything just really gelled in this house for me. The music was cool, it was creepy. One of those tunes that got caught in my head you know, throughout the course of the event. I love the score to this house, but really, really, really good house. My favorite house this year. As far as scares, there's so many scares in this house, but which ones got me the most? I'd have to say the first one would be the girl in the chair. That one really got me the first time I went through because I wasn't paying attention. Of course, when I went in there afterwards, I knew she was there, but I wasn't paying attention. And the other one was in that last room where they had the screen, where the guy popped out from underneath the screen. Yeah, that got me too. That was really the first time I went through like that. That really got me. But I really, really love this house. I would also love to see this house return in some form of fashion in the future. You know, just a really good house. My favorite house, probably in a while. Like I really loved last year's houses, but like this was really well done. I love the facade. The facade I thought was really cool. Set the tone for the house nicely. Just a really, really, really good house. So Dead End, my favorite, gets a 5 for this year. So Dead End, my favorite house. So there goes the houses. So from least to most, Walking Dead, Alice Cooper, Gothic, Penn and Teller, Silent Hill, House of Horrors, and Dead End. So there you go. That's from least to, so for all dyslexic people, Dead End, House of Horrors, Silent Hill, Penn and Teller, Gothic, Alice Cooper, Walking Dead. Okay? So moving on, let's talk a little bit about the street experience. I'm going to give the street experience a 4. I really, 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 really liked the street experience this year. I thought the experiment worked. When it was working, it was working. When it wasn't working, it was okay. It really depended on the energy of the actors, whatever kind of energy they brought on the day. There were some days where the energy wasn't as high, and there were other days where it was just kicked up to full gear. But I love the street experience. I really, for me, one of the most fun things about the street experience was just watching. I loved watching people get the fuck scared out of them when they didn't see it coming. They might just be sitting over by the bathrooms, and here comes one of the chainsaw girls, waiting by the bathrooms, or people having a burger in Mel's and having one of the vampires come in or something like that. Like that was really, I thought probably the most fun I've had in general at Horror Nights in a really long time, and that goes to the street experience. I really, really dug the street experience this year. And that goes for everything. I thought the Lagoon, what Universal did with the Lagoon this year was a fantastic touch. The mist, the lights, the tribute shows, all that stuff goes in for me with just setting the mood for the overall streets this year for Horror Nights. One of the really cool aspects I thought about the Lagoon show is if you are, you could be across on the other side of the park, and as the Lagoon show is starting, in the distance you see the lights and you see the water fountains and all that stuff. It really added another level of atmosphere to the park, which I thought was really, really cool. So the street experience for me is going to get an overall 4. I would like to see the street experience return, but maybe done a little bit differently. I think there's some things that they could do a little bit differently. Yes, I missed the props, but I think it works the way it does without the huge set pieces and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, like, I would like to see more props in the streets and stuff like that. I think that'd be pretty cool. But I think we're kind of stuck with this for a little bit, depending on the construction in the park and the parade and stuff like that, depending on what they do. So I think we're kind of stuck with the street experience for at least another year. So if they bring back next year, I think just maybe tweak it a little bit. But I thought it worked fine this year. I thought it was a really cool experiment. I thought it really, really worked. Lots of fog. There was so much fucking fog this year. It was ridiculous. The lights, I love the lighting effects. I love the sound effects. But yes, I do kind of miss the props. I think the props, the large props, add a little bit more to the streets. But overall, I thought the actors did a tremendous job with doing with what they had. So street experience gets a 4. As far as my favorite legions go, Beasts, Traditionals, The Iniquitous, Warriors, prisoners, vampires, walkers. The walkers, I just don't like the walkers. I mean, they just did nothing for me. So, but the beasts were cool. I love their costumes. I love what they did. The traditionals were funny as hell. A whole lot of fun. The Iniquitous really weren't scary, but I love the costuming on the Iniquitous. I love what they did with the Iniquitous. The Warriors were cool too. One of the Warriors, I was over in the Columbus Circle area of New York, taking a break, and I don't know if I said this on another video, but I had my drink on the floor and I was tweeting. And one of the Warriors tried to scare me. I saw him coming, but he still tried to scare me anyway. He had his little warrior staff thingy, and he banged the staff thingy on the floor, and he hit my cup, my little blinky glass, which I think this might be why this is broken. But he hit the cup, and the cup went flying into the bushes, and it was really funny. But it is what it is. So. I thought the Warriors cool. The Prisoners were alright. I thought the all female chainsaw drill team was really cool. They were hilarious too. Like if you listen to some of the stuff that they were saying and whatnot, like they were freaking funny. And I saw them. There were a couple times where they were basically hounding on people. They love to go into mellows, man. But they were cool. They were cool too. Vampires were alright. And the Walkers, like I said, were just kind of lumbering around. So. Now, however, Universal does listen to you when you take those surveys and stuff like that. Some people thought there might have been a little bit too much dead space, for lack of a better term, around the park. So what did Universal do? They added 2 legions. Yes, folks, 2 legions were added the second week of the event. They were zombies, no, not walkers, and trick-or-treaters. No, not the traditionals. The zombies they had. These didn't really roam. They kind of were stuck over by the IFF area. And the trick-or-treaters, I only saw them in 2 places. I saw them up at the front, and then I saw them over by Mel's. I didn't really see them too much around other sides of the park, but I think they kind of stuck to that area. So yes, they did add 2 legions to sort of fill in some of the dead space. The zombies that were over by IFF were infinitely better than the walkers. And I'm not going to rank them for fairness because they weren't, part of the legions to begin with. But the zombies I thought were really cool. Lots of energy from those guys. They did this really cool thing where when they were coming out, they would stand there and they would be growling and waiting to go off. And these zombies ran. So these were the 28 Days Later, Dawn of the Dead remake type of zombies. So not the walker lumbering type of thing. These guys were all over you. I enjoyed those a lot. But the trick-or-treaters, I didn't see that a whole lot. There were a couple new stilt walkers. There was a really tall stilt walker girl. I don't know how to describe her. There was also one with a stilt walker with a tank top on with bones and the bone face and all that stuff. It was part of the whole new trick-or-treater thing. So, but they did add 2 more legions to the. I think the number I heard is they hired 85 extra actors to come in and fill those roles. So Universal does listen to you folks. So anyway, so overall, yes, I really dug the street experience, and I hope they bring it back a little bit tweaked. I think with a little bit more pizzazz, it could be something even beyond what they did this year. But the streets overall for me were probably the most fun I've had at Horror Nights in a long time. Not the scariest street experience or scare zone or whatever, but a whole lot of fucking fun. And the actors take pictures with you. So, I mean, that was they would not hesitate to stop and take pictures, or you take pictures with them. So, coming up on 30 minutes here. So let's get to the final 2, the shows. Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. I've saw this show multiple times. Never really picked up for me at all. One thing did change in the show, though. Fox News apparently got wind of Mitt Romney's epic rap battle with Obama in the show. and did not really like Romney's rap too much. And they sort of complained that the show skewed towards or leaned Obama and all this other nonsense. So, and they didn't like the fact that Mitt Romney's rap had a lot of curse words in it or something like that, and it made him look like an idiot or something. And so they changed Mitt Romney's rap towards the end of the show. It was actually worse. But yes, they did change up his rap a little bit because Fox News was unapproving. So, but still, never really. This show never really got going for me. I don't know if it's just because I didn't get a whole lot of the references, or just didn't care about the references. But I really didn't find a whole lot of the show funny. So 20 Penny Circus. I still 2 days later do not understand this show. I didn't like this show at all. Please, I mean, I'm glad they plucked these guys out of local obscurity, but please, please don't bring the show back. This is almost worse than Brian Brushwood. It might even be worse than Brian Brushwood. But it is what it is. I was not a fan of the 20 Penny Circus Fully Exposed. So there you have it. Halloween Horror Nights 22 has come and gone. I really liked this year. I thought it was a good, solid year. Not the greatest year, but it was definitely a lot of fun this year. And for me, a lot of the funness was only elevated by the Horror on Earth game, which I'll get to in another video, or in the next video. But yes, it was a whole lot of fun this year. There were a couple houses that were meh, but overall, the street experience and the I was really surprised by Silent Hill. That house really surprised me. And Penn and Teller, I thought, that surprised me as well. Dead End, of course, my favorite house. But yeah, it was a good year. I really, really think it was a good year. And I'm speaking honestly. I really, really thought it was a solid, good year. Not the greatest of years, but a solid, good year. I don't think anything is going to be as great as my favorite year. I think I mentioned this before, was 2008. I don't think anything is going to be as great as 2008. In the coming future, unless they do something completely epic. But it was a good year. It really, really was a good year. So kudos to Universal, all the actors, because it was definitely a year for the actors, for the scare actors to do what they do, what they're hired to do. So kudos to all the actors. I don't know if any of you all watched this, but or watched these videos or whatever. But kudos to you guys. You guys did a tremendous job this year, and you really made this year fun. But the only thing I'll say about this year is that this year was crowded. It was a very crowded year this year. So, I mean, there were days, Thursdays and Sundays are not usually crowded, but almost every Thursday and Sunday was worse than certain Fridays or Saturdays. It definitely was a crowded year this year. So that would be my only downside to this year, is that it was really, really crowded. And The Walking Dead, that house, towards the end of the event, I had to start going earlier because the house, when it first opened was like 5 or 10 minutes. And that was the only time that I'd be able to do it, because all the other times I'd be up to like 2 hours, 3 hours. And I was not waiting 3 hours for The Walking Dead. It just wasn't happening. There was, honestly, the only house I would wait long for this year was Dead End. I would definitely wait for that house. But, I would never... I really don't like to wait. I mean, I don't mind waiting in lines, but lines that are that long, God, no. But that's it for this edition. Bring on Halloween Horror Nights 23. HHN Legacy will continue the video blogs as we switch over more to our Around the Universe segments, where we talk a little bit about what's going on around Universal Studios. Of course, Transformers, a lot of construction stuff going on, so we'll be very active with that. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you all had a cool haunt season. Hope you all enjoyed Halloween Horror Nights 22 as much as I did. And bring on Halloween Horror Nights 23. Please do not hesitate to comment or ask me any questions or anything that you want. I will try my best to get to every question, every comment, whatever that I can. But bear with me if it's a little slow. So anyway, until next time, next year, Halloween Horror Nights 23, I will catch you later.